This conference will now be recorded.
All right. Mary, we're just waiting on Brian Leclerc. Okay, Brian is in. And Mary, you're still with me, right? Mary Dean? Mary Dean, are you with me? Yes.
Yes.
All right. So we're good. And it is being recorded. I just want to make sure. Billy Perillo, are you on?
Yes, I'm on.
Okay, excellent. So we are recording. We will get going. All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for everybody for joining us tonight. It is March 30th, 2021. It is 5:33 p.m. My name is Chris Pia, and for tonight's purposes, I am the chairman of the Tax Partnership Screening Committee. We have called a meeting to hear the applications for two applicants. The first item on the agenda is an application for abatement for the property located at 1479 Barnum Avenue. And with that, I would like to welcome, I believe it's Mr. Ganem. How are you, sir? And welcome you to the committee, to the meeting, and I grant you the floor to give us a rundown of your application, what you're looking to do, and then the committee will take it from there.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wasn't sure how this was going to proceed tonight. I didn't know that there was a presentation involved, but the property, kind of off the cuff, the property had been sitting vacant since approximately 2010. It had sat vacant because there was a fire in the basement of what used to be a restaurant in the building. The former owner just let it sit for nearly a decade. So we put the application in last January of 2020, and the application reflects that a substantial amount of rehabilitation work was going to take place with the property with respect to shoring it up and updating its mechanicals and electrical systems and plumbing systems. A good deal of that has taken place already. So it's a two-story structure. It's a mixed use. On the first floor, it's set up for retail use. The second floor is a residential use. The second floor is currently occupied by a single individual. The first floor remains vacant. It is queued up really for a restaurant type of a use, which was the former use. The tenant that we had for the property a year ago has not come through. The deal has been terminated, so it's available for rent now. So we're looking for the tax abatement to help entice an incoming tenant to be interested in the property. It would benefit them. It's being leased on a triple net basis, so whatever the taxes are would be the responsibility of the incoming tenant. So if it's a restaurant use, they would benefit immediately from an abatement of the taxes because they would not have that pass-through expense to them. So we'd ask this committee to consider granting the application. It would certainly help with the costs that have been incurred to rehabilitate the place, the continuing costs that are going to be necessary to finish the project, and it would help get a tenant into the building in this tough time, really, with COVID, with restaurants. They're all very skittish coming in, so this would be an incentive, and I think it would be good for the town, good for the property owner, but certainly good for the town as well. There is a budget that we had submitted at the time. If you have any questions on it, I'm happy to answer it. I think you have pretty much everything there is needed for the application. So I would welcome any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Ganem. So we'll open it up for questions to the board, just for the purposes of, thank you, sir, just for the purpose of recording. So anybody, we have 5 board members, myself, Crispy as chair. We have councilors Perillo and Dancho, and Mr. Jim Benson as representing for the charter, the Economic Development Commission, and Mr. Randy Vidal representing for the charter, the RDA. So for the record on that. I just have a couple quick questions for first, and I do this for every applicant that comes through. Is there, into the tax assessor, Donna, is there any property, is the property delinquent on any taxes? Because that is one thing that is in our amendment, excuse me, our ordinance. I just want to verify that while she's checking. Oh, she's on mute. You're on mute, Donna.
Oh, sorry. Nope, no taxes are due right now.
Okay, excellent. And Mr. Gannon, question to you, because it's another question in the ordinance. No, you haven't received any other tax incentives under the federal government or the state for this property, right? Okay.
No, sir.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure. I have in here, my last question is the schedule of improvements you have estimated at 156,397. And we have, I believe, permanent jobs, the permanent jobs associated with the anticipated restaurant use at 10. Is that still accurate based off your assumptions?
I'm sorry, what was your question? There was, and I know you referenced a budget. There was an amended budget, I believe, that was submitted probably last August. Do you have that?
I have the budget, Donna, I have the budget at 156,397 in terms of project budget.
Yeah, well,
Correct, that's the second budget. Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Gannon, that's what you're referring to. That's the most recent submitted budget, correct?
I believe.
Take your time. I just want to make sure we have the right one.
My recollection was, and I'm unable to verify this on the spot, but my recollection was the budget was amended last summer to $226,304.
226. Okay. Donna or Mary, what we had, and I'm just going off what I have, Mr. Gannon, I have the budget at the 156,397, and it has the estimated project schedule, which is obviously we've gone through 2020, but the last date of completion was 6/30/2020. Just for a point of reference.
Yes.
Chris,
Yes,
there is another budget in here for 226,304. Looks like an estimate, yes. I do have the building completely finished at 100%. Everything that was, all the permits that were pulled are at 100%.
Okay. So let me open up to any other board members. Questions questions to the town can go to Donna as tax assessor. We have Mary Dean as well. We also have Bernie Brian Leclerc, who works on the abatement, or Mr. Gannon. I'll open up to the floor for members.
Mr. Chairman, this is Laura Dancho. Although I'm really happy to see a renovation done at this location on Barnum Avenue, I'm going to recuse myself from this discussion based on a personal connection with Mr. Gannon.
Okay. Mr. Town Attorney, that's okay with you, obviously?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so for the record, Carol, Ms. Dancho is recusing herself from the vote on this. Thank you. Mr.
And
Dow.
Chairman, it's Jim Benson. Can you hear me?
Yep, I have you.
Okay. I do have sort of an indirect business relationship with the owners as well, so I would also like to recuse myself from this.
All right. So be it. We'll put that into the record as well, Carol. No problem. Good for transparency. Mr. Perillo, Mr. Vidal, any thoughts or questions on the application?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Perillo, go ahead.
just a question. The potential of job opportunities. I kind of want to. I know that I think the application said possibly 10, or maybe that was what you just mentioned. But Mr. Ganem said it was open for retail, but fitted for a restaurant. Are there any plans of anyone coming in, so we have an idea of the potential of job opportunities?
I have discussions with a couple of 2 different restaurants owners right now that have not resulted in a lease as yet, but they seems to be a lot of interest in a restaurant use at that location for the entirety of the first floor. If that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perillo. Mr. Vidal?
Chairman, can I ask?
Donna, go ahead. I'm sorry, Randy. Hold on one second. Donna? Yes.
I was just curious. It's fit out for a restaurant, correct? Mr. Ganem?
Well, to answer your question, it's been started in that direction. There's the tenant that I had signed up a year ago installed a hood system and a makeup air system. It's not completely installed, but certainly the major components are there. Other than that, it has not been finished inside. So if your records are showing it's 100%, it's not. There are not bathrooms installed. There's no flooring installed. It's really sheetrocked and taped without any flooring, without any fixtures, with the exception of the hood system and ducting and makeup air system. Most of which is outside, by the way.
Thank you.
Thanks, Donna. Mr. Randy, I think you wanted to say something.
Well, yes, I have a couple of questions. Will the tenant be doing the fit up for the restaurant if it goes in that direction?
I think the tenant would be doing what we've been telling the prospective tenants is that, look, as a landlord, we're not going to build a restaurant, but we will be doing the basic components of the building. And from that platform, you could fit it out the rest of the way for your restaurant. So as a landlord, we're doing the handicap bathrooms, and we're sheetrocking, insulating, doing the major components of the plumbing and electrical. But if they want a sink in a particular location, they're going to have to plumb it on their own. If they're going to need electrical components or gas for a stove in a particular area, they're going to have to do their own piping, if that answers your question.
Yeah, I was curious as to how the offering was going to attract. Anyway, the other question I have is, and it's really based on what the economic benefits are to the community. And it has to do with the number of employees that are anticipated. Could you refresh my memory on the number of employees? I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me.
It had been 10 on the application.
Creation of 10 full-time jobs?
I don't know that they were all full-time for the restaurant.
Or is that including folks that are going to be working on the site as temporary employees?
Cut down 20 temporary employees and 10 permanent.
Okay. Well, in my experience, a lot of those folks that be working in the restaurant are really, a lot of them are not going to be full-time, they're part-time. And with all due respect, I'm having some I'm having some doubts as to the economic benefit to the town.
Miss Donna, if Chris Pia, can I ask a question? What would the assessed value be based off your numbers today, an approximation, assuming Mr. Ganem's property goes to complete fit out for a restaurant? What would the estimated assessed value be for tax revenue
Right now
purposes?
I have it assessed at 305,830.
305,830.
Donna, is that for the upstairs residential as well?
Whole building.
The whole building?
So, so just so I'm clear, but again, just getting a ballpark, at 305,830, that puts us at approximately $12,123 a year in annual property tax, correct?
Correct. But I have to split out the apartment upstairs because that's, I would have to do my calculation again because the upstairs apartment is not, would not be a part of the equation. So I'd have to break out the whole upstairs. So that's for the whole building. So it would be less than that.
Okay.
It'd be less than 12,000 a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any, Ms. Furlow, Mr. Vidal, any other questions for Mr. Ganem?
I don't have, no, I don't have a question. I was just thinking about a restaurant, and the proposal of a restaurant. If someone was going to propose a restaurant there, they would have maybe a more accurate business plan, so we'd have a better idea of how many employees had potential there. And just thinking about right now, there's not a solid proposal on the table for that space right now. But no questions.
Mr. Ganem, to Randy's point, to Mr. Vidal's point too, I do have concern over the restaurant, and I know it's we've been hampered with the worst thing that's happened in 100 years in this world, with the cost of improvements. And just for accurate purposes, sir, I know you said it was about 256, I believe you said.
Yes.
226,304.
226,304. Okay. And does that 226,304 include the upstairs fit out?
It's been a while, but I believe so, yes.
Okay. So essentially, yeah, go ahead, sir.
I wasn't limiting this to, and it didn't seem clear to me in the regulation or the ordinance that this would be limited to just the first floor on a mixed-use building, but so I had put it in based on the overall construction costs.
Understood. Mr. Leclerc, when we rewrote this, you can just elaborate on just the clarity so we're all on the same page on it regarding the restaurant aspect as well as residential.
Yeah, restaurants are included
Yep.
under 191-10, as are what we call mixed-use developments with not less than 25% designated as commercial or retail in the non-residential portion thereof.
Okay.
So we had a provision for mixed use under this.
So we have provision for mixed use for here. Okay.
Yeah.
And if I can,
Yes, sir.
if it's of help, I think my calculations on this side were that the first floor use, the commercial use, constitutes 80%, or pretty nearly 80% of the entire building square footage.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. Now that we're now showing recording, good. Now that we're back on, I'm sorry for everyone who got kicked off there. Out of our hands, we're dealing with it. Mr. Leclerc, just for legal purposes, are we still good under FOIA and everything like that right now?
We are, because we're back into the same meeting, so the same codes work, the same individuals. You could note for the record that the same individuals are here now who were here before. You could note that when the meeting locked up or briefly went offline, nothing transpired after we all lost it together, and nothing was discussed. I think the last thing I had talked about was the combination residential and mixed-use developments, 25% floor area, and right after that, I think Attorney Ganem started talking about 80%, if I'm not mistaken, and then everyone lost the signal together. I think the meeting shut us all out of it. So we should all be back. Anyone who wants to be here is here and can be there, so I think we're okay.
Thank you, Mr. Leclerc. Mr. Ganem, I apologize, sir. You were in the middle talking about the 80%. If you could just want to restate what you were talking about.
I was just saying that the breakdown on the square footage, the entire building, I don't know what the square footage is on the entire building, but the calculations we had done were that the first floor constitutes 80% of the square footage for the entire building, first and second floor combined.
80%. Gotcha.
If the tax assessor has any reason to disagree with me on that, I don't know, but I think she'll find that that came from the square footage off the assessor's field card, I believe.
Okay.
The total square footage is 3,006 feet. 2,390 square feet are the first floor, and there's 616 on the upstairs.
Thank you,
Yes,
Donna.
I would agree with that, Mr. Ganem. Yep.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant any other questions for the applicant or anything else, Donna, if you'd like to add? Just want to make sure I cover everybody. No.
I just wanted Mr. Ganem to know that I do have the value of his building only at 55% complete. Exterior, it's done, but once I can get inside, we'll figure out how much is done inside or whatever the scenario is with the interior.
Okay. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you, Donna. Okay, thank you. I'll here's my initial, I'll just give my thoughts. We have the applicant is allowed under the, excuse me, I always want to refer to it properly, under the tax incentive program as being eligible. I have the assessment at approximately, using the current mill rate at approximately $305,000, which again, based off of that would bring us, and Donna, correct me if I'm wrong, to approximately around $12,000, between $11,000 and $12,000 a year in annual property taxes, correct? Am I off on my range?
Once it's 100%, yeah, you're correct. Right now it's at 50% complete. I just can't get to my other notes without losing the getting out of the meeting. So yes.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate Mr. Ganem. Thank you for coming forward and putting the work in. Mr. Vidal made a point before. I'm looking at the assessed value versus, and then the job thing is big on me in terms of permanent jobs in the community. I'm not for doing an abatement on the application at this time. This is me personally, and again, it has a lot to do with me with the amount of permanent jobs bringing into the community on these applications as well. Not necessarily the bottom line being assessed value, because we do have it on there that anything from 100,000 up is available in terms of improvements. But I'm on the job side, I'm just not for it. Are there any other members who would like to say anything or get your thought?
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Perlow, go ahead, sir.
I feel the same on the permanent job situation, and may want to make a motion maybe to pass on the application.
Okay, so you're making a motion to pass on the application.
Well, by pass, I mean, just to be clear, Mr. Chairman, I want to be clear what a motion to pass is. Is that
I'm sorry,
table,
deny,
to postpone, or
deny
because
the,
you're under the ordinance, you have to determine the amount, if any, and the duration. So you can either have a motion to approve the abatement for a certain number of years, up to 6, I believe, in this case, with certain percentages, or to deny the abatement.
Okay, I'll change that, make a motion to deny.
All right, so motion has been made by Mr. Perillo. Do I have a second to that motion then?
Second.
All right, so second by Mr. Vidal. Any further discussion? Being that Ms. Dancho and Mr. Benson have recused themselves prior, discussion is limited now to Mr. Perillo and Mr. Vidal. Any further discussion for you gentlemen?
No.
No? Okay. All right, we'll call for a vote then. All those in favor, by the motion made by Mr. Perillo to deny the application, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair will vote aye. Any opposed? No opposed? All right. So motion to deny is passed 3-0 by Perillo, Mr. Vidal, and myself, Chris Pia. Mr. Ganem, I do appreciate you coming forward, sir, and giving us an in-depth, detailed presentation. And we do appreciate your investment in the town and look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay, so next item on the agenda is going to be item number 3, which is an application for abatement on the address located at 495 Lordship Boulevard. As I normally do, I like to turn it over to the applicant for a description and an understanding of the application, the property, its intended use, current use and future, and what you guys have done. So forgive me, Mary or Donna, who's going to take the lead on this in terms of, I know there's a few people here from the applicant.
So I'd like it if they could all introduce themselves. And then Donna has been working hand in hand with them on the application. Okay. And while she's doing that, considering all our issues, I am going to try to share my screen with, I believe, John Nuff, so that they can make a presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and try to do that while everyone introduces themselves and we move forward.
So Mary, before you switch the screen, just in case it minimizes the faces, I just why don't we introduce, gentlemen, why don't you allow the opportunity to introduce yourself, we'll go to the screen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mary. My name is John Nuff. I'm an attorney with an office at 147 on Broad Street in Milford, Connecticut, just down the street from all of you. I'm here tonight with my client, Brian Poitras, who you see with the brick wall behind him. He's waving to everybody. And we very much appreciate the opportunity to address all of you. Mary, you don't need to share your screen just yet. Brian is the principal of the property owner at 495 Lordship Boulevard. And again, I want to thank Mary and Donna. We've had a number of emails and phone calls over the past couple of days and extending back for a couple of weeks. And we very much appreciate their insight and assistance. I understand that this is just the second application under your new ordinance, and so we're happy to be before you. This is a really, this ordinance really presents a really wonderful opportunity, and I think what you'll see is that our application fulfills the goals that are laid out in your tax abatement program in terms of redevelopment of blighted, obsolete, and contaminated properties. Not only does this program help bring commercial sites back to life, but puts it on the tax rolls in a very meaningful way and provides important employment opportunities. And in this case, those numbers are very, very substantial. What you'll see is we are, the Planning and Zoning Commission in Stratford has approved a 370,000 square foot industrial building. It represents a $40 million investment by my clients. And we estimate conservatively a total of about 250 to 370 jobs. As you know, commercial leases always have a triple net feature, meaning that the tenant pays the real property taxes and the personal property taxes. So by reducing the taxes, the property owner and the tenant really become partners, or the property owner and the town really become partners in attracting new tenants to the town, as well as maintaining existing businesses. And this is part of the really wonderful story about this application, because my client's proposing both, not only maintaining a really important and wonderful business that was homegrown in Stratford, but also attracting new businesses in Stratford. And so clearly taxes are an important component when tenants are looking to lease new property. You know, the abatement of taxes in this location will serve as a real inducement to help fully tenant this building. We have a PowerPoint presentation that we put together. So Mary, if you want to share your screen, or we can certainly attempt to do so, it might be a little bit easier for you.
I am trying to make you the presenter, but I'm not finding the screen. I'm saying share my screen, but it's not allowing me to. I'm going to settings and
So Mary, while you're looking, Mr. Null.
well, okay, go ahead. I'm looking for some guidance because it's saying that
Mary, look at the bottom.
I have to, yeah.
Look at the bottom. See it says mic, camera, screen, and leave. Click on the gray screen at the bottom, the big dot. Does that help you?
So,
do you have that on yours?
no, I just have a camera.
Mine says microphone.
I have camera and I have share.
Okay, click on share, because on mine it says screen, and if I hover, it says ask the organizer to make me the presenter to share my screen. So I think if you push that screen button next to leave, you'll be able to share.
So my question to you is because Chris is a partial presenter, is also on it, can Chris Pia do it on his? Chris, do you have that on yours?
I think you have to be made a presenter. The organizer can make anyone a presenter that he or she wants. And once they're made a presenter, they can share
Chris and I are, right. Chris and I are co-presenters, and I'm trying to find where that is.
I'm not a presenter right now. I'm grayed out.
Oh, okay.
Do you see a circle next? Who's trying to share their screen, Mary? You or John or Chris?
I'm trying to share it with John Nuff, and I hit share your screen.
Wait a minute. If you do share screen, you're going to share it with all of us.
Right. So Brian.
Okay.
Just so you know, I sent Mary a PowerPoint that she can share herself, or if she can turn it over to me, we can share our screen. But I think Mary just needs to pull up the PowerPoint that I sent her earlier today.
Mary, if you have trouble with that, you can make Attorney Nuff a presenter by clicking. And once you make
right, I know that's what I'm trying to do, and I don't know where to do that. I was hoping that I'm looking at my settings. I don't know where to do that. So I just found out right before the meeting that I was going to have to do that, and I'm not.
So why don't we do this? Mary, why don't you keep looking? Mr. Nuff, why don't we take the opportunity to allow your colleagues to introduce themselves? That way we're still doing some stuff. And
it's not going to happen.
Brian, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, and if we can get the presentation to work, we can we'll just do it the old-fashioned way. We'll just talk to each other. That's fine with me. So my name is Brian Poitras. I'm a principal here at GFI Partners. We're the developers of the property in Stratford, and we're excited to be here presenting before you. Hold on, somebody's walking through the background here. Hold on a second.
Hi guys. So I'm Jamie from Athletic Brewing. I'm the COO. With me is Steven, our CFO. I think if you don't know anything about Athletic Brewing, we're at 350 Long Beach. We came back there about 2.5 years ago, built the brewery. Currently we have about 43 full-time teammates from 0 2 years ago. Fortunately, the space opened up here at 495. We've been searching sort of with a timeline of first quarter of 2022 being up and running, hiring probably up to 100 new full-time teammates, taking about 60% of the 368,000 square feet. We already have $6 million of equipment on order that we need to place someplace. So as part of a $30 million investment in terms of the facility on our side, not GFI side. So being around the corner from where we are, keeping our teammates in town is really important to us. this property is expensive compared to North Carolina, Philadelphia, places that we've been looking by 3 to 2x, depending on where you're talking. We really just want this to work for the town of Stratford and for our partnership with GFI. Respectfully, just putting in our sort of support for this as a very, we're a non-alcoholic brewery. It's kind of like the fastest growing beverage out there. We have very good backing for our company. So just looking to really stay in town, come around the corner, literally through a fence, and we're at the new property from where we are right now. So thanks for your time.
Thanks,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman.
Thank you for that, Jamie. Go ahead, Brian.
Mr.
Sorry.
Chairman, it's Brian Leclerc. Mary, I was just on the phone with the
Yes.
council clerk. She indicated that if you'd like to make Attorney Nuff someone who can present, move your mouse to the top right-hand corner where you see the little people with the number 14 after it. Click on the people.
Yep.
Go down to his name. There's a little down arrow next to his name. If you click on that next to John Nuff, you can make him
Right.
a
And it's not opening. That's why I was hoping I could co-organize with someone, because it's not
well,
opening.
you can't make it. You're unable to make him a presenter when you click on next to his name or his name.
It's not opening.
Hey, Brian,
What's that?
I think we can get through the presentation.
Yeah, that's okay. You know what? Yeah, I think we'll be okay. It was. I appreciate the work that Attorney Nuff did on the presentation, but I think
I feel horrible.
No, Mary, don't worry about it. This is fine. Yeah, we're happy to talk about. We're excited to talk about the project. We identified this site. Geez, going back to early 2019. Well, and just to back up a bit, GFI is a real estate development investment operating company that's been around since the late 90s. It was started by a guy named Steve Goodman, who's the founding principal and still active here day to day. And this is kind of what we do. We operate a portfolio of about 10 million square feet currently of industrial and multifamily properties, which are mostly around the north.
This conference will now be recorded.
And Mr. Chairman, let's ask Mary to keep her video off in case she's at home having bandwidth problems. That may keep us from getting booted again.
Yep, Mary, we're good right now. Hang tight with video off and mute. If I need anything, you could obviously pop on. But we are being recorded again. Thank you again. That was our second technical difficulty. We're all back on. And for the town attorney, you could concur, and we're good right now.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, you may proceed.
Thank you, sir. I believe, Jamie, I think you were talking right when we got cut off.
Yeah.
I apologize.
Yeah. No worries. I was just kind of giving a little background on the firm, and just to say that just to pick up where I left off. This is exactly the type of investment that we like to make and have specialized in making over the last 30 years. I think that what we do best is finding underutilized, maybe distressed, difficult sites that are in need of new capital, expert redevelopment, maybe environmental remediation, as is the case here. We have a lot of experience with environmental remediation, and putting difficult, challenged sites back into productive use. So this is a site that was we started looking at early in 2019. We came in, we started talking, we met with the folks there, with Mary, you guys and Laura, you guys have been great, helping us understand what the possible incentives were and how we can make this work. We tied the site up in 2019 and knew that it was one that needed an old building torn down. There was environmental challenges here. I wouldn't say that the contamination is so significant, but what made it challenging was that the prior owner had really just let all the paperwork lapse, and it was in non-compliance and it was out of compliance with the Transfer Act. So it took a real effort. And we've done a lot in Connecticut in different parts, not only in Fairfield County, but a lot up in the northern part of the state too. So it took some expertise and a lot of time and money up front to wade through what hadn't been filed, what had been filed, getting it back in compliance with the Transfer Act, and getting it to a point where we could move forward with development. So that was something that has been resolved. It's actually now in what's called the Brownfields Recovery Revitalization Program with the state, which puts it on a track towards a fully resolved site, and provides some good benefits for the owner and for the municipality and the property as well, provided that we do everything we're supposed to do to clean it up, and we're in the process of doing that. We've spent I don't know, probably somewhere between $180,000, $190,000 to date, and we'll be into the environmental remediation for I think it's like 250 to 300,000. So it's not insignificant, and but it's something that we know is part and parcel with putting old properties back into productive use, and working with the town has been great. You guys have been getting things approved. This needed multiple different approvals, so we had to go in the waterways, and it's near the airport. We're in the flight path, and the town of Stratford has been really great, because this isn't a simple one, and it hasn't been. But now we're at the point where we have a plan, we have a pretty picture. We're out there. Actually, we've torn the old building down, and people can start to see the vision. And we're actually starting to do some site work and put some piles in the ground. And we have the opportunity, fortunately, where we're talking to folks like Jamie and Steve at Athletic Brewing, who are just, they're a local Stratford company. They're growing like a weed. They want to stay here. They don't want to move everybody. It's kind of a great fit for us and for everybody. And I think we have a site that could accommodate them. I will say that we're, because of the size of the building and where they're at in their growth, and this kind of ties into kind of us, asking for some help on the taxes, is that, because of it's a big building, and these guys have big plans, but they're still kind of getting up and running and growing. They're taking a little more space than they probably can use at the moment. They have like a 10-year growth plan, so they're kind of biting off a bigger bite than they can probably chew at the moment. And then that gets into the operating expenses. We're trying to help them out with the management fees, and the taxes are a big thing. So we're trying to get these guys to come here and stay here and take a big chunk of space. And I will tell you, I have another tenant of ours in Massachusetts who's a distributor of automotive parts, who would love to be here. And I've sent them a letter of intent. They could take the rest of the space, and they are. They're kind of the taxes are a conversation. They're like, oh, geez, the taxes are a lot in Fairfield County, and we said we know, but it's an irreplaceable spot we're at. We're right off of 95. We love where we are. So we're here to say that based on all of our early conversations with you folks, it seems like this is something that is a tool that can help us attract these tenants. We did get an offer of some help, which we appreciate. I think we'd like to ask for a little more help, just looking at the numbers and what we need to do to get these guys to come here. That's it. We're excited to be here and complete this project and do more projects. I've put offered on a piece around the corner, and we own a big property in Brantford, and we'd like to just keep investing here more. We've been thrilled with the cooperation so far, and this will be a big piece of it. So that's kind of that's why we're here.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. Thank you for all the introductions and everything. Mary, in fairness to Mary, and I'm gonna give her credit here. She did email the presentation out prior to this, so we will take a look at it. I briefly started, but don't worry. I'm gonna first start off for some questions here. The first thing is, as I always do with everybody, and I would assume no on this, being it's brand new, but Donna, the property is not delinquent of any taxes, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And same with Donna, and I'll actually, excuse me, to Brian, no other tax abatements or federal or state credits or incentives, correct? Brian, can you hear me?
I think the answer to that
I think you're not talking to me, Mr. Chairman. It's the.
Oh, or maybe Mr. Nuff.
Right. So the answer to that is no.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to make sure.
Brian with an I is who is directed toward.
Hey,
Oh, I apologize. Yeah. Okay.
We'll call him Brick. We'll call him Brick Wall Brian. Make it clear.
There you go. Yeah.
We'll do Brick Wall Brian. No problem.
That's actually what my friends call me, strangely enough. So yeah, thank you.
I had approximately, Mr. Nuff had mentioned before, approximately 370,000 square feet, and I have between 250, 370 jobs. Is that an accurate figure?
Yeah. Yes.
That came from us. That was in our application. That's based on what we see It's a kind of a broad stroke. We don't have, again, we're talking to Jamie, but we don't have tenants. That's kind of a broad stroke number that is based on a market study. So I don't, yes.
And regarding Jamie and Stephen who are on, do you guys have a signed letter of intent with Athletic Brewing?
We do have a letter of, we have a non-binding letter of intent at this point, and we're trying to, get to a real deal. Yeah.
Gotcha. Non-binding. Okay. Thank you. I'll open it up to the team here. I don't want to hog all the time. Mr. Perillo, Mr. Benson, Ms. Dancho, Mr. Vidal.
Chris, I have a question.
Go ahead, Bill. Perillo.
I know unless I missed it in the email, is there a timeline when the building will be complete?
About a year from today. That's the plan. A little less.
All right, thank you.
Less, Jamie, less.
It's Jim Benson. Quick question. Just as far as you said, just to clarify, the brewery would occupy potentially 60%, and then an auto dealership would potentially occupy the remaining 40%, or auto auto parts distributor, correct? And
Well,
so
potentially, yep. Well, they haven't signed any letter of intent. I submitted an offer to them. They've not agreed to it, but they do tires. Yeah, it's just a warehouse. Yeah, a warehouse tenant in the rest of it. So
okay,
hopefully
so
Athletic would be about 210, and the other guys would be 150. Yeah.
Okay, and the Athletic Brewery, obviously, Attorney Leclerc qualifies under one of these categories, right? As what a manufacturer, I guess, right?
Yes, sir.
And by the way, I just think just my own personal opinion, I think what Jamie, you guys have done over there is phenomenal. I mean, and you're in Stratford, and your business model is great, and obviously, as far as business goes, it's a great operation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Vidal, do you have anything, sir? Ms. Dancho?
Yeah, I really have a question. As I was going through the cost analysis, probably Donna is. I have a land acquisition cost that's stated at 7.5 million, and then I looked at some of the records, and it shows 5.5 million. Can we get some clarity on that?
No, I believe that the land acquisition cost was 5.5, right? Yeah. We bought the land for 5.5 from the guy in New York.
And the other question I have is, which I'm sure everyone's interested in, is you've been on the market for lease now for a while, and we're hearing that you have one LOI out. Is there more than one LOI? As question number one. And number two, without being exact, can you give us an idea of the degree of interest you've had in leasing this building?
So we have an LOI out with Jamie and those guys. I've submitted an LOI for the rest of the spaces to the tire guys. You wouldn't normally have, you wouldn't have multiple at one time. There's definitely been interest. It's like a lot of things. It's a little bit, I know it's a cliche, but it's a little bit, if you build it, they will come. It's now that you see the old building down and you see some work going on, people can start to visualize a little more, and you start to get to like the point where we're a year away from delivery, a little less, then people can actually start to make some plans and some timelines. So the interest, I think, is getting better. Obviously it's a phenomenal spot, and this is a place where people want to be. So yeah, we've had some other interested parties, for sure. But right now we have two LOIs out.
Yeah, I agree. I think once the steel goes up, you're going to get even more interest.
Yeah. Yep.
Ms. Dancho, did you have anything? I have a couple more questions, but Laura, I want to give you the opportunity if you have a question.
I think it's a great project, and I'm excited to have this happen in Stratford. So I'm saying the brewery is going to move to this space, or are you storing stuff in the space?
Jamie, you take that?
Are you asking, will we keep the old brewery as well?
You're going to keep the old brewery as well,
If,
and then
well, let me just answer the question, sorry, because if we move to 495, we will keep both. If we have to move out of town or state, we will not have any. Because of the convenience of the location, we can keep one as like a pilot facility for us. We won't keep our warehouse there, but we will keep the brewery. So at 350, sorry, we're split and anchoring the building from two different ends. One is warehouse and e-com fulfillment, and one is the brewery. We will keep the smaller 10,000 square foot brewery there,
so
but
that's the space
give up the
that'll be
warehouse.
that's open to the public.
It is, yes. And we'll have a open tap room here as well. It's not out beer, so just
Okay, and then the rest of this, I guess, would be to Brian. The rest of the building, Brian with an I, the rest of the building would be a general warehouse. Right now you have an LOI with a potential tire distributor, and if that falls through, like I'm assuming that this type of arrangement could come and go, right? The tire guy will be there for a few years, and then you would get somebody else in for a few years.
Sure, yeah, it's just, that's a good question. So we have multiple, there's a few parties interested. They seem like like the strongest one. In that particular case, if we sign a lease with those guys, they want to do a 10-year lease, so they'd be there for a long time. Typically these yes, but the idea for the building has always been warehouse, storage, trucks coming in and out. And Jamie, those guys came to us with a little different use where they're going to use a good portion of it, not the whole thing, a good portion will be for the brewery, and then a portion of it it'll be kind of like, I don't want to speak for them, but it's like roughly half and half. Warehouse and distribution, and also making the beer. So it's a little bit of a different use than what we'd envisioned, but it's really cool. But the rest of the space will most likely be like the folks we're talking to. One guy is a national distributor of like hardware, hammers and and tools and things like that. And there's another group who, geez, I don't know, it was more like consumer goods. So it's going to be some kind of warehouse, most likely, yeah.
If I can jump in just momentarily, I know there's an understandable interest in who the tenants are, but and I think that's sort of exciting because that's who you really want to know, and particularly in this case because of ABC. But the way your ordinance is drafted, it really contemplates this application coming in. I mean, in fact, requires before really any substantial construction takes place. So well in advance of when you would actually have your tenants in line. So it's really terrific that Brian has been able to identify, one, likely user in terms of ABC, and then also is reaching out to some other existing clients. But I understand, of course, that there's an interest in the tenants, but really it's intended to also be an inducement to attracting new tenants, and in this case, maintaining one in your town.
Understood. And John, point well made. Yeah, I think it's all good conversation, and people are inquiring about the future development of it, and I agree. Can Mr.
Just as a way of it, and I don't mean this as like this is going to sound a little bit salesy, but it's actually, the conversations with the tire guy are probably that's the stumbling block. I mean, I would put that at 50-50 because of the taxes. That's just, if you're in Massachusetts, you're just not used to seeing those tax rates. So, yeah, and that's just, if that provides any color, but yeah.
So let me, Brian with the brick wall in the background, I'll go to you for a few questions, as I always do. My biggest question and biggest swing thing, I guess, for my opinion on this committee is jobs. I do, based off, and again, I'm not asking you to nail it down to an exact number, but between 200 and 350 jobs is a very good, healthy range. Even if, from a part-time and also full-time position. I like that. I always ask that based off, my constituents and all of us do represent the people of town, and obviously we want to have people, if there's great opportunities like yourselves coming in to build, hopefully we will work with the community to work on that in terms of promoting it. One of the questions, so I'll question for Donna, as I always do. What do we have as the improvements, the value of the improvements, and then conversely to go down the list, essentially the estimated assessment on this?
I've valued this as a distribution warehouse with 368,000 square feet.
Okay,
I've also taken into consideration ample overhead doors for shipping and a 10,000 square foot office fit up.
Okay.
I use an average of $8 per square foot. So the assessment would be, so the land is not a part of the abatement, so it's just the improvements. So the improvements are 14,466,500. That times our mill rate would be a $573,451 tax bill. So at 100%, given today's mill rate of 39.64, the first year at 100% approximately, the taxes would be $573,450.
So 573,000 in annual taxes based off of that, based off those figures.
Correct.
Okay.
And I
Thank
had
you.
talked to Bradford. I think he was in, I don't know.
Yeah, Brad's my partners,
his-
yep.
Okay. And he's given me, a lot of information, so it's worked out well. So him and I guess, both came in about $850 a square foot. And that would be the potential tax liability.
Okay. So 573,000 a year based off of the improvements at 14,466,000 on the improvements, that puts us between the 100,000 to 20 million. So up to a 6-year abatement. Am I correct there, Mr. Town Attorney?
You are correct, Mr. Chairman. Up to a 6-year abatement, year 1 and year 2 are up to 100%. Year 3 is up to 80%. Year 4 is up to 60%, 60. Year 5 is up to 40%, and year 6 is up to 20% exempt.
Okay, sorry, I'm just doing some numbers here. So, gotcha. So I'm in favor of working out an abatement schedule for the applicant. And again, assuming the figure of 573,000 a year in annual property taxes, we can go up to anywhere. I like a 3 to so gentlemen, just to bring you into the loop, right? So we, as Mr. Nuff, excuse me, sir, Mr. Nuff had mentioned before, you guys are now the second applicant to come through on this new ordinance. One of the things that we had changed from the previous one that was drafted, I think way back before the internet was invented, is that it didn't give the town some flexibility for us to have a conversation about schedules and amounts. It now does, and I was one, as well as Ms. Dancho and Mr. Vidal, Mr. Brillo, to work on that when we first got elected a few years ago. So it's made for projects like yourselves. So I'm definitely in favor of a schedule here for you gentlemen on this. What I'm comfortable being that we can do up to 6 years. I'm comfortable with anything between 3 and 5 based off this number. I don't know if you have a personal preference on that. And and again, just throwing out numbers, at 100% would be 573, 80%, what I just did would be 458. So basically clocking down in different clips. I would like to start around the 80 to 70% range in the first year. And if you like to go around 3 to 5 years, I'm fine with that. I just did some initial quick numbers on that, and that's just my thoughts. So I'm kind of talking out loud. I'd like some other feedback from the other committee members. Billy or Randy or Jim, if anybody.
Just a question. So it's a year before the building is occupied or completed, right? So
yes,
when you say that you talk about that schedule, does that 100% up to 100%, that includes while the building is under construction, or would this commence after the building is completed and the tenants are moved in?
So, Mr. Benson, I'm going to have Brian Leclerc answer that question for you.
That's a good question, Mr. Benson. ordinance, section 191-11, provides that the abatement shall be as follows. During the period of construction, but not greater than 18 months, or until such additional time beyond 18 months as the committee agrees to, but no more than 24 months, there is an abatement. And then until the receipt of certificate of occupancy, which shall have, 100% exempt. So basically, you get the abatement is either 18 months or until the C of O 100%. Then the year one starts kicking in at that point. So it's not from today. It's not from the day they put a shovel in the ground. It is during that period of construction up until either the C of O or 18 months, which you can extend to 24 months. There's an abatement, and then the years start adding up.
Got it.
Makes sense, Jim? Okay. Randy, Laura, Billy, any questions or thoughts or ideas?
Yeah, I'm inclined to go with your expression of maybe kicking this off at 80 and then working from there.
Okay. One of the, and just for, so you gentlemen understand too, one of my reasons for thinking this way too is, this is a great opportunity for the town. It's also a great great opportunity to bring people like yourselves in to work with us and become part of the community and grow. That's the intent. Being, from my seat, and this is just my personal belief, I'm the chair of the tax abatement committee. I'm also the chair of the town council. And one of the things that I keep very much at the forefront of my mind in making these decisions is future revenue projections and the taxpayer, right? So if we're giving a tax abatement out, which I do believe is a very useful, productive tool to use appropriately, I am also very cognizant of future revenue projections and in terms of for the town. So I just, please keep in mind, that's one thing that I am very, is really at the front of my decision making. So that's one of my reasons that I like starting with an 80 or 70% range and either going in like an 80, 70, 50 or 80, 70, 60, or if you wanted to do something along the lines of say 75, 65, 55, 45, 35, around 5 years, I'm okay with that too. I didn't know if you had a preference based off your cash flow that will benefit you more. And that's where I think we'd be willing to work with you guys on that.
Well, I appreciate that willingness to work together. What you proposed would be very helpful. So I as far as kind of slicing and dicing, I guess I'd have to think about it. I don't. Yeah, let me think about it. I think what you proposed is probably would be very helpful. Yeah. So so I understand that you're saying you'd pay 80%, so we'd pay a smaller amount in year one, like I've seen other municipalities, and it goes up over the years. Yeah, is that what you're saying?
Oh, yes, just so for clarity, Brian, we would, if we were to go 80, 70, 60, right, for example, in a 3-year abatement, we would abate 80% the first year, 70 in the second, 60 in the third, and you would be paying the net is what you guys would be paying, and then in year 4 would be a complete burn off.
Great.
So that's why I didn't know from a cash flow if it helps you better to spread it out a little bit more from 3 to 5, or you obviously get a short, in a short amount of time you can get more upfront, but that's why I just wanted to give you the flexibility on.
No, I think that, and now I understand your question, but I think that, I think to be perfectly candid, I think just total savings is probably the best, is the best for us. If that means it's spread out a little more and it's not, but yeah, to incentivize, I mean, these guys are, I mean, if we can make a deal with Jamie, they're going to sign a 15-year lease, right? So they're looking at total cost of ownership. So it's, it really is, it's what.
Yeah, I guess I mean,
yeah, Steve, please speak up.
Yeah, like from our
perspective,
I mean, I think depending on what the difference is, we take it up front. I mean, if you think about what we're doing, we're building a new category of beer here, right? So non-alcoholic craft beer didn't used to exist until we built the first facility in Stratford, right? So which is great, but that costs money, right? It costs money to build the facility, but it also costs money to go explain to people that non-alcoholic craft beer is a category and it's a product that they want to buy and put in their bodies, and there's lots of great use for it. So we're spending a bunch of money creating that awareness. And so if we can, and we have to do that now because it doesn't exist, 3 years from now, a bunch of that work will be done. So we won't have to spend as much money for every can of beer we sell. So getting a little bit more of that up front probably helps us, all things being equal, right? We wouldn't trade twice the money to get it up front, but within some range, getting it earlier helps us.
So Brian, just based off of an 80-60-40 in a 3-year spread, or 65, 55, 45, 35, 25, the 5-year will give you approximately about 200,000 more in savings over 5 years. And that's where I was asking if it would help you more in a 3-year, 5-year.
Yeah, I think that's going to allow me to having that bigger savings over the 5 years is going to help me more. Yeah.
And that'll help you more okay. So if that helps you more, I'm willing to work with you on that. I'd like the other, I was just doing the math on it now, but if the other committee members, if you'd like to weigh in your thoughts, please.
And I do have another question. I still don't understand. So that $14 million, is that what the assessed value it's based off of? Is that what? There's two pieces. There's the percentage and there's the assessment, right? What's the assessment? Are we agreeing on an assessment now as part of this? And then when does that change? Does it change with the next revaluation in 24? So I need to understand both pieces. Yeah.
Yep.
But just so you know, Mr. Chairman, I think to answer Brian with the eyes question, the abatement is a percentage that's going to be granted by the council. So if the assessed value changes because of what you do during construction, or and you could take tax appeals if you felt appropriate. Attorney Nuff could educate you on that, I know, but you're not going to be assigned a value assuming you get this abatement. You're going to be getting a percentage abatement off of the taxes, the assessed value. So if that's your question.
It is. So is there any way that I can understand what my ultimate assessed value is going to be?
I mean, the assessor could explain how she comes up with it. So sure.
All right. So that 14 is what my assessment will be. It will be, you're saying?
If I have 20,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I have $20 million as your 100% value with 14 million in assessment.
Got it.
The assessment 70%.
And that 20 million, when and how could that potentially change?
After the building's completed, if you spent more than the numbers that Brad and I came up with.
Oh, okay.
And after the abatement's finished, after the building's finished, if you do more permit work, the value is going to go up with the more permit work you do also.
Okay, so if it turns out at the end that, I'm sorry, go ahead, Donna. I interrupted you. It's just a little bit of a delay, so I didn't want to interrupt you.
Oh, no, that's okay. Go ahead.
No, so that makes sense. So I told you, I gave you our projections. Here's what we're going to spend. Here's what the building's going to, as long as we do that, that's what your number is based off. If you come back later and I put like an extra story on this thing and I put a helicopter pad, then you're going to change your numbers, right? Is that
Absolutely.
pretty much it? Okay.
Yep.
And Brian, she can, right, to the point, and Town Attorney Brian made a point. Our job is to grant you a schedule and a percentage of that schedule, right, in the years appropriate. The assessed value can change down the line, absolutely.
Of course.
Go up, go down. But we're, we're trying to give you something to get going in the period to help you guys, and then obviously help the tenants. So
that's really help. It's a huge help. Yeah.
Back to the committee members, Mr. Benson.
I was just going to comment a couple things. One, I believe this is exactly what the intent of this ordinance is, to help support a project like this that will bring jobs, that will support a business that's already committed to Stratford, that is showing a lot of growth potential, that can bring a lot of jobs. I'm definitely in favor of supporting them, in the manner that works here. Just getting back to my last question, I just want to understand now, is the building, while it's under construction, is it on the tax roll now? And what if construction is delayed by, say, a year? I mean, how would that affect our decision?
Well, during
right now, Jim, Oh, I'm sorry. Go
No,
ahead,
Donna,
Brian.
you go first and explain what it is now, then I'll explain, should this be granted, what would happen.
Okay. Right now it's vacant land, so they're being valued on the land. Once the building is built, once they get a CO, that's when their abatement starts. They have 18 months to build this. And they could get extensions if need be by the council, but it's valued at 100% once the CO is done or its intended use. So basically, it's vacant land right now. We've looked at the values of, I put this in my computer system. I figured out what a distribution warehouse with the triple net lease. That's where we came up with about the $8.50 per square foot value. And then basically it'll just change. What if they do more work, it's going to go up higher, but this is based on what they're doing now. And mine is just an estimate because who knows what changes they would make and if they decide they have to add something else. And another thing I just wanted to bring to your attention, as a manufacturer, we also have manufacturer's exemptions in the state of Connecticut. So obviously your equipment, if you fill out the documentation yearly, would be exempt also, your manufacturing equipment. I don't know if you're aware of that, Jamie.
And just as a follow-up question, you said they have 18 months to complete construction. What happens if they don't meet that timeline?
I'm going to refer that to my attorney, Brian.
Yeah, the question again was if you, the abatement begins, if this is granted this evening, there are no taxes up until the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, at which point it's 100% until the C of O is issued. At that moment in time, year one begins, and it depends on what you've awarded, what percentage you've awarded as the abatement. So it's whatever happens first. It's either the C of O or 18 months. You can extend, the committee can extend the 18 months up to an additional 6 months. So if the construction, so if you grant this evening and the construction lingers beyond 18 months and you give them an extra 6 months and it lingers beyond 24 months, the 100% stops at that point. If there's partial C of Os or something like that, and there could be a tax that starts to incur on the property until it's done, and then you go back into year one of the abatement.
Excuse me, one other thing. So say you start now in March, April, when October 1st comes, I have to value everything in the town of Stratford as of October 1st. So if you have a third of that building done on October 1st, you will be paying taxes on a third of that building. So whatever's there on October 1st, you will pay taxes until you have a CO and it's completed. Then your abatement will start.
You do those every year. That's every October, is that right?
Right, but
Yep, we'll
we'll be done in a year, but I mean, I was just curious. So you do those valuations every October?
every property that has permit work done, we visit every year, see how much is done, and we value it by what part of it's completed by October 1st.
Makes
okay,
sense.
just to be clear, Brian Leclerc was saying that the tax would be completely abated during construction, during that 18 months or 24 months. I think Brian Leclerc has done it, and I just want to clear up what I think. What in my mind is an inconsistency. Is whether we would be paying taxes during the construction period. I think what Brian Leclerc was saying was that we would not be, and we had 18 months to complete the construction, or an additional 6, and then year one would kick in. Is that right, Brian?
I don't pay any taxes. Because I'm already paying taxes on the land. Right?
Yeah, hold on 1 second.
On land.
Yes.
Yeah, we're talking about the
those,
improvements.
or I pay nothing.
Remember, because your abatement is on the improvements.
Okay, yeah. So I would keep paying whatever I'm paying now on the 4 million land value. That's what I thought you meant. Yeah.
Yeah, and on the ordinance specifically says the abatement shall be as follows. Number 1, during the period of construction, but no longer than 18 months, or such additional time as the committee extends it, but no more than 6 additional months, or until the receipt of the C of O, whichever occurs first, 100% exempt. Then following such period or issuance of the C of O, colon, and then it comes each year and the percentages that are awarded to you by the committee and ultimately the council.
Right, so 100% on the improvements during the construction.
Yeah, and the abatement is applicable to the value of the building and improvements only under the ordinance.
Got it.
In section 191.11.
Okay, thanks, Brian.
So,
And again, the amount abated, if this is, with the amount to be abated is determined by the assessor. Final assessed value after rehab is complete, less the value prior to rehab equals the amount which may be abated.
So Brian, they would have to pay taxes until it was CO'd.
Right,
Yeah.
on the land.
Which is what I expected, yeah.
Not on the land, on whatever part of the building is up also.
Yeah, because the abatement is only applicable to the value of, the final assessed value after rehab less the value prior to rehab equals that much, which must be abated. So if there's a building there, if that's what you're saying, yeah, if that's the question, yes. So if you have a building there worth $1,000 now, and they're going to build a $20 million building, you can only get an abatement on 20 million less the $1,000 what's there already. It's only the abatement is the final value less the value prior to rehab. So it's only the 20 million less the $1,000. So they'd have to pay on the land and that $1,000 value of what's there right now. Correct. During construction.
Correct,
Right, and
but
what
then
Donna's
as of
saying
October
is-
1st,
Yeah, I get what you're saying. So there's gonna be a half a year where I'm paying on a chunk of a building until we get a CO. Okay, whatever. I get it.
okay, so we're good. Thank you. Thank you both. Thank you for the clarity. Mr. Vidal, Ms. Dancho, Mr. Perillo, anything from you guys?
No, just a comment that's probably outside of this discussion, but it's well worth noting that as they lease up the building, these tenants may qualify for personal property tax abatements. So there's a two-pronged benefit, really. That's just something that I thought was worth mentioning.
Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Ms. Dancho, Mr. Perillo?
I'm in favor of offering something to this project. And I'm wondering if this is something we could discuss separately, or do we need to decide something tonight?
Well, no, fair question. I'll just give you the timeline, right, in terms of how everything is good that everybody's on. If we decide tonight with a favorable recommendation, we can have this be, because just so you gentlemen know, it has to be a final approval by the town council. But we can have that put on the April 12th regularly scheduled council meeting, which is the next regularly scheduled meeting. If we hold off tonight to have some further discussion on that, it probably won't be voted on until May, to the May meeting. I just don't know what your time frame is. Yep, Brian, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, listen, you guys need to do what you need to do, but I will tell you that, so one of the interesting things about if we're able to make a deal with Athletic Brewing is, unfortunately, because some of those tanks are really heavy and we're going back and forth right now, depending on where some of that equipment goes, I don't know if you noticed, I need to put piers in the ground because the ground's kind of soft. You see, if you drive by, you see all those big piers going in the ground. I need to put piers in some special places where that equipment's going to go. And right now they got their engineers trying to figure out where it's going to go. And the steel's starting to show up. My long story short is, if it gets pushed, I'm going to start losing money. If the schedule's going to get delayed, the steel's going to start piling up. So listen, you guys need to do whatever you need to do. But if it doesn't get approved, and I don't know if I have a deal with Jamie, and it goes till May, it's going to really hurt my schedule and cost me a lot of money. So if there's anything you can do, I'd appreciate it. But it's, again, this is your meeting. Yeah.
Understood. And thank you for the honesty. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
And Mr. Chairman, one alternative, Mr. Chairman, is you can have a special meeting of this body. You have time to get on the April 12th agenda to keep it moving. So if Attorney Dancho wants, you can just not make a decision tonight, call a meeting some point next week. quick meeting once you've had a chance to think about this a little bit and roll up your sleeves, because it's a big decision to make.
Yep.
And you'll still have time to get it on for these gentlemen on that April 12th agenda of the council. Maybe that's the way we should proceed.
Let me, hang on. I'm perfectly fine with either of those options, Brian.
Is
Mr.
there
Vidal?
any, sorry to ask from athletic side,
Yes,
but
Jamie.
in the interest of time, and I'm going to just sort of stress on what Brian said, that like even I honestly don't know if April 12th gets like our side where we need to be. I hate to say this from that perspective, but I don't know if there's a simple outcome that we can come up with tonight, if possible, if everybody could mind, you know, trying to figure it out. I thought that was the point of the meeting. So
I'm fine, Jamie, to your point, and I'm fine with moving forward tonight with a 5-year to give these guys clarity on where we're going with this. The vote, if it passes with a favorable tonight, it still needs to be voted on by the town council. That's just the way that everything works. But I am fine with moving forward with a 5-year abatement, beginning, you know, around starting with 65, 55, 45, 35, 25. If you know, as we said before, the longer would help them out a little bit more. I just I'll throw that out there for any of the other committee members, or if anybody would like to make a motion, I'm fine with that.
I would like to move forward with that too. I'm fine with a 5-year percentage, and I'm just wondering if the actual percentage amounts can be discussed at another time.
Okay. Mr. Benson, Randy.
Chris?
I'd like to see, you know, there's been a lot of time invested on all parties here, and I understand the concern, but I really would like to see, really like to see us move forward on this evening, if it's possible. And as everybody knows, it is subject to the town council's approval.
It is, yep, it is, and that is a good point, Randy. It can be changed at the council. Obviously, this is a favorable recommendation to the council, which can be changed at the council level. Bill, were you trying to say something, Perillo?
Yeah, I feel good about going with this. I'd like to have a special meeting on a few of the details, but if Randy wants to come to something tonight, I don't have a problem with that too.
I also would agree with maybe telling the client tonight that yes, we're going to give you an abatement incentive, most likely for 5 years, but the actual percentages of what each of those years are going to entail, we can decide at a special meeting and pass that on to you.
Why don't we do this then? Why don't we do this? He's still keeping to the timeline with everything. I'm fine if we call a special meeting just for this applicant next week sometime. I will work with that tomorrow, getting it on the calendar. That way it can still be voted on for the regular scheduled April 12th meeting, so it doesn't get pushed past that, because that's really the main thing that we need. Just so you guys know, we can squeeze one of these, you know, meetings in for a half hour, an hour at some point next week, but it's the April 12th regular scheduled council meeting because they come once a month.
Yeah, I think we
Mr.
could.
Chairman, I'm sorry. If you'd like, I could run numbers for you. It's me, Donna. If you'd like, you know, if you give me 80, 60, 40, 60, 50, right, whatever, give me the numbers and I'll run them for you, and we can have them ready for the meeting and we can make a decision for the special meeting and we'll be good to go.
I think that's a good idea.
I appreciate that. That sounds great.
I think that's a good idea. So what I will say is, we will get a meeting scheduled by the end of the day tomorrow. We'll let you guys know. It'll more than likely be early next week on a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. I don't hold me to that at this moment. We'll work with you on it. Mr. Leclerc, would we need a motion to postpone, or how would you properly ask us to do this?
I would entertain a motion to, well, if you don't have an exact date, why don't you just put it on the table? Otherwise, you could postpone it till the date's certain, but you don't know what that date is. So just put it
Yeah.
on the table so you can then call a special meeting with this on the agenda, take it off the table, and we can move forward with it at that time.
Okay.
So I'll entertain a motion to table the item.
I'm happy to make that motion to put this application on the table until such time a special meeting can be called to determine the abatement.
Motion by Ms. Dancho. Do I have a second?
Perillo, second that.
Seconded by Councilor Perillo. Any discussion on motion to table? No. Hearing none. Well, I counted to 3. All right, we'll call it for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion to table is approved 5-0. Thank you, guys. We will work with you over the next day. We'll get something on the calendar. That way we can do our due diligence on it. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, it's Brian Lefebvre. You should just FYI for the applicants, let him know that this committee will make its recommendation at this next meeting, the special meeting next week. But it will be on the council agenda for a week from Monday, which is April 12th. And that's an 8 p.m. meeting, and they should add that to their calendar so they can be available and be there, because this will be an item that will be discussed at the council at that time. So
good point, Mr.
I want to make sure they know
And a
that.
special meeting is just you guys. You don't want me on that, right?
You're more than welcome to do it. We don't technically need you, but you're more than welcome.
Whatever you want. Yeah, it sounds like you guys just want to discuss what to offer. So I'll be available if you need me, but if not, whatever. Yeah.
Thanks, sir.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Laura Dancho, motion to adjourn.
I got motion by Dancho. I have a second by Mr. Benson. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your patience tonight.
Thank you very much.